Hello and welcome to the unit devoted to Yves Chevallard and the Anthropological Theory of the Didactic, ATD, in the ICMI Awardees Multimedia Online Resources Project, ICMI AMOR. This module, number 0, will present some aspects of Yves Chevallard's career and background. Yves Chevallard received the 4th ICMI Freudenthal Award in 2009 in recognition of his foundation and development over the last 2.5 decades of a very original, fruitful, and influential research program in mathematics education, the Anthropological Theory of the Didactic. Born in 1946, Yves Chevallard went to the Lycée Thiers in Marseille, where he entered the classe préparatoire aux grandes écoles, a typical French selective mathematics post-secondary education. He passed the contest and entered the prestigious École Normale Supérieure de la Rue d'Ulm in 1967 to study mathematics and earned in 1970 the agrégation, a highly competitive examination for high school teachers. In this time, marked by the reform of the modern mathematics, he was already interested in mathematics teaching. He used to read the Journal of the Association of Mathematics Teachers, le Bulletin de l'APMEP, and he was also interested in sociology and anthropology, reading authors like Michèle Foucault, Claude Lévi-Strauss, and Pierre Bourdieu. He even followed some classes by Louis Althusser at the École Normale d'Ulm. In his last year in the École Normale Supérieure, he started doing research in logic. After a few months as a teacher in the classe préparatoire in the Lycée Thiers, he was recruited in the mathematics faculty in Marseille at the beginning of 1972. There, he joined the Institute for Research in Mathematics Education, the IREM, which had been created in 1970. In this context, he organized a workshop for mathematics secondary school teachers on the theme of mathematics and interdisciplinarity. This period represented a transition for Yves Chevallard. His interest in mathematics education led him to progressively abandon the research in logic, but he didn't start straight away doing research in mathematics education. His publications of the time include the book Two Mathematical Studies on Parenthood, based on one side on some genetic aspects and on the other side on a work by the anthropologist called Claude Lévi-Strauss. This book, first published in the IREM of Marseille, was remarked by Maurice Gleiman, a very active mathematician in the IREM of Lyon, who proposed to publish it with Cédic Publisher in 1977. In 1978, with a colleague from Marseille, Robert Roland, who had a vast project of a treatise on analysis, he also published a book on numerical series. In his teaching at the university with Robert Roland, they were also trying some innovative methods. In particular, they used to start a course not by a magistral discourse, but with problem solving. This was not usual back then. In Marseille at that time, there was a very active young teacher, Jean-Louis Auvert, with a great historical and epistemological culture. He was in contact with Guy Brousseau in Bordeaux, who was leading one of the first programs for research training in mathematics education. Jean-Louis Auvert is the one who suggested to Brousseau that he should name the field of research experimental epistemology, even though the name didactics of mathematics was finally preferred in reference to communist tradition. However, Auvert, with the help of some teachers in the mathematics faculty like Robert Roland, but not Yves Chevallard yet, was trying to extend the research training program from Bordeaux to Marseille. In this context, they invited Guy Brousseau in June 1976 and asked Yves Chevallard to come and meet him. Let us listen now to Yves Chevallard himself describing this first meeting with Guy Brousseau.
Un jour, on me dit, Guy Brousseau, que je ne connaissais pas, vient à Marseille, c'était en juin 1976, est-ce que tu pourrais te rendre présent? Alors, mais au titre suivant, au titre d'un enseignant de maths de la fac qui pourrait accueillir des étudiants inscrits au DEA pour observer, pour faire de l'observation, comme un prof qui accueille des gens pour faire de l'observation de classe. Voilà. C'était à ce titre. Et là, j'ai rencontré Brousseau et j'ai été séduit alors par le... J'ai été d'abord impressionné par le fait qu'il pouvait parler toute une journée, alors non pas, ça, il y a beaucoup de gens qui peuvent, mais lui pouvait parler de la même chose très longtemps. Et j'en ai induit que sans doute cette chose existait fortement pour lui, même si pour moi elle était un petit peu évanescente puisque je la découvrais. Bon, ensuite ça s'est enclenché, il y a eu un voyage retour à Bordeaux, et puis ensuite ça s'est lancé, quoi. Bon.
Et la théorie des situations était déjà bien élaborée?
Était en grande partie élaborée. Je peux vous dire que... Alors il y a eu plusieurs années où moi j'allais régulièrement à Bordeaux, à l'école Jules Michelet de Talence, observer, enfin, etc. Bon. Et un jour nous arrivons, alors nous étions 3, 2 autres personnes dont je ne citerai pas le nom parce qu'elles ont disparu du champ, et Brousseau nous accueille sur le parking, enfin devant, en nous disant il y a une 4e dialectique. Avant, il n'avait que les 3 de l'action, de la formulation, de la validation, et il venait d'ajouter l'institutionnalisation. Donc on était un peu aux premières loges pour ce genre de choses. Hein. Et puis, bon, la manière de fonctionner de Guy et de ses équipiers, disons, enfin, dont Nadine, sa femme, évidemment, était très instructive enfin, en tout cas pour moi, pour beaucoup, je pense, en vérité. Voilà comment ça a commencé. Alors,
after his meeting with Brousseau, Yves Chevallard followed some of the courses in the program for research training. He was in particular interested by the psychologist Michèle Brossard, who talked once about a book called The Time of Studies, the doctoral thesis published in 1975 by the sociologist Michèle Véret, in which he used the expression didactic transposition. Véret's approach was very general, though, at a macro level from a sociologist's point of view. Chevallard read the 2 volumes of the thesis, and it hit some ideas he already had in mind about the illusion of transparency that prevails in the teaching about the object of knowledge. In the following years, he supervised a few master theses on different mathematical subjects, taking into account an analysis of the institutional conditions in which the object of knowledge appeared in the curriculum and evolved in the school and finally in the actual teaching in the class. This was the beginning of the theory of didactic transposition that really took shape during the spring 1980 when Yves Chevallard had to prepare a course for the first research summer school of didactics of mathematics that himself co-organized with Claude Committee from Grenoble in the summer 1980 in Champs-Rousse near Grenoble. Besides Yves Chevallard's course on the didactic transposition, at this summer school there was a course by Guy Brousseau and another one by Gérard Vergniaud. In 1980, he was also founded the journal Recherche en didactique des mathématiques, known as RDM, with the local publisher La Pensée Sauvage in Grenoble, who published in 1985 the first edition of the didactic transposition. In this early work, there is already in germs most of what will constitute later the anthropological theory of the didactic. In the second edition of the didactic transposition, published in 1991, Chevallard made explicit some key points in an important postface in which he explains in particular that for him the research in didactics of mathematics belonged to the field of anthropology. He could have used the term of sociology, except that at that time the field of sociology, especially in France, was in the process of a total restructuration, and the term was very connoted. Anthropology was more neutral somehow, and reflected better the idea that mathematics is a human activity and does not exist outside human interactions. For instance, Chevallard was not at all in the trend of social representation, which was a very popular concept of the time, but he felt the necessity to find some ways of talking about the cognitive evolution of a student's learning mathematics after what Piaget had identified as the different stages of development. This is how he came to introduce the concept of relation to object of knowledge. Following the didactic transposition, it was clear that the question of the relation to the object of knowledge was dependent on the different places, the different institutions in which the person was in contact with the object. At the same time, the object of knowledge had a life in each institution which was dependent on certain conditions and constraints. And Chevallard introduced an ecological approach with the notion of habitat and niche to model the way objects of knowledge interact. For instance, he declined to take up the famous slogan of constructivism at the time, saying that the students build his or her own knowledge. Indeed, in Chevallard's view, the knowledge already exists in different institutions. It is not built by an individual. It is a personal relation to this knowledge that evolves. Moreover, the way it evolves is not just a personal matter, it is conditioned and constrained by the institutional relation of the diverse institutions frequented by the student. So the best one can say is that students participate partly to the building of his or her relation to the object of knowledge, but many aspects elude his and her capacity. As said before, all these fundamental ideas were in germs in the didactic transposition and emerged progressively during the decade 1980-1990 through various works and some important doctoral dissertations that Chevallard supervised. We can mention Landy-Rajosson dissertation entitled The Ecological Analysis of Conditions and Constraints in the Study of Didactic Transposition Phenomena, 3 case studies, defended in 1988, or Michèle Artaud's doctorate entitled Mathematization in Economics as a Didactic Problem, an Exploratory Study, defended in 1993. In Marianna's Bosch dissertation, defended in 1994 and entitled The Ostensive Dimension in Mathematical Activity, the Case of Proportionality, she makes use of the then recent concept of praxeology that Chevallard created in order to better describe the nature of the relations to object of knowledge in different institutions. In fact, Chevallard came to create this concept when in the recently created University Teachers Training Institute, the IUFM, he set his seminar in 1991 for secondary school mathematics teachers in their training year. Through what he called the Forum of Questions, student teachers could freely ask their question from their teaching experience, and Chevallard would reformulate the question and answers in terms of the concept of the ATD. It was in this context that he introduced the concept of mathematical and didactic organization, the moments of study, the scale of level of codeterminacy, and the study and research activity and path. Let us listen to Chevallard again, explaining how this seminar was conceived.
Je fais un séminaire de didactique des mathématiques pour professeurs, pour jeunes professeurs. Personnellement, je n'aime pas la distinction enfant-adulte. Enfin, sa manipulation. Et quand on a 8 ans, on n'a pas 30 ans, c'est sûr. Mais l'utilisation qu'on en fait dans beaucoup de situations sociales me paraît éminemment critiquable. Et de même, je n'aime pas la distinction entre débutants et aguerris chez les profs. Je prétends que, justement, par le biais de ce que j'ai appelé le forum des questions, ce que rapportent des professeurs débutants, ce sont des vraies contraintes du métier que les professeurs aguerris ne rapportent pas, et c'est devenu silencieux chez eux. Ça ne veut pas dire qu'ils ont réglé le problème, mais ça veut dire qu'ils se sont habitués au problème. Tandis que là, on a quelque chose, donc ce n'est pas des difficultés de débutants, ce sont des difficultés du métier et qu'on va étudier. Voilà Alors, pour ça, il fallait évidemment des outils de pensée et d'action, et je vais mettre en place, alors ça s'exprime en termes de praxéologie jusqu'à aujourd'hui, qui est une notion plus fondamentale. Au passage, je rajoute que quand je lisais les textes de Guy Brousseau, il parle souvent de une connaissance. Et ma question était, c'est quoi une connaissance? Alors évidemment, il y avait comme en maths, il y a des fonctions implicites, il y a une réponse implicite, c'est ce qu'on acquiert, quand on parle des dialectiques, etc. Bon, d'accord. Mais moi, je disais, il faut avoir une notion générique qui modélise cette idée. Et cette notion générique, pour moi, c'était la notion de praxéologie. Donc je prétends évidemment qu'elle est universelle, qu'elle vaut dans tout domaine, etc.
Among other references that inspired his work, Chevallard quotes the book by Hans Freudenthal published in 1983 entitled Didactical Phenomenology of Mathematic Structure, and the collection of books created by Jean-Louis Auvert and Jean-Luc Verlet under the name Léonard Epistémon. Both were mathematician, historian and epistemologist of mathematics with a wide culture, and they intended to write this collection for university mathematics with lots of historical references and an explicit epistemological approach. Unfortunately, they only published a condensed course and the whole project of the first 2 volumes of Analysis and Algebra, but never more. During the years 1984-1991, Yves Chevallard was the director of the IREM in Marseille. He was appointed full university professor in 1991 at the newly created IUFM in Marseille and promoted to the first class in 1999, where he was also chair of the Scientific and Pedagogical Council between 1991 and 2006. He retired from this institution and became honorary professor in 2012. Yves Chevallard founded and directed from 1994 until 2000 the journal Scholé, published at the IUFM in Marseille. He has been a member of the scientific committee of the journal Recherche en Didactique des Mathématiques since its creation and was the editor-in-chief between 2000 and 2002. With the didactic transposition, Chevallard brought a complementary viewpoint to the 2 main trends in French didactics of mathematics, namely Brousseau's theories of situation and Vernier's theories of conceptual fields. With the growth of the ATD, his influence became wider. The anthropological approach allows to view didactic issues not only from the viewpoint of a specific class or teacher or student, but more widely as part of the surrounding world, culture and society. In this sense, the recent concept of scales or levels of codeterminacy is a powerful tool in order to make visible some unusual levels of influence in the conditions and constraints at stake in the didactic systems. His influence in France is important, especially in the research at secondary school level. He and his students were regularly in charge of themes in the biannual research summer schools. They regularly give talks in national meetings and publish in journals like RDM or Petit X. Moreover, Chevallard always fought against the separation of school subject, and in this influence is visible beyond mathematics in different didactics, and more generally in the whole field of educational sciences, where his work is often quoted, even if not always fully understood and correctly presented. But the ATD and Chevallard also got an international audience, especially in Spain and Latin America, and especially in Brazil, in Nordic countries, and more recently in Japan. After a stay as an invited professor in the Institute for Didactic der Mathematik, IDM in Bielefeld in 1987, Yves Chevallard was invited to the Centre de Recerca Matemática in Barcelona, Spain, in 1991. At the time, when he was heavily involved with some other renowned French researchers, including Guy Brousseau and Michèle, to help take off a postgraduate teaching of mathematics didactic in Spain. He delivered several courses in didactics at the Escuela del Profesorado in Granada, Spain. Thus began an intense scientific collaboration with an expanding group of Spanish-speaking researchers, including crucially Marianna and Joseph Gascon, which has continued to this day. Since 2005, more or less every second year, an international congress of the anthropological theory of the didactic has been organized, alternatively in Spain and in France. The 6th edition took place near Grenoble in January 2018. During the summer 2019, under the responsibility of Marianna, was organized in Barcelona an intensive 8-week research program focused on the latest development of the ATD, and it links with the other approaches in mathematics education. Yves Chevallard himself delivered regular lectures throughout the whole program, revealing the latest innovation of his ever-growing theory. You can now proceed to Module 1 of Yves Chevallard's unit, devoted to the anthropological theory of didactic. Thank you for your attention.